Can I copy or use that image that I have found on the internet? It is such a great question that I get asked a lot because it means you care about using other people's images and you want to do it properly. So that's what this episode is all about. I have to say before I start, I am not a legal expert. I'm just sharing things that I've learned over the years when it comes to using other people's images for inspiration and turning our own artworks into a piece that's taken from somewhere else because it's a really great thing to do. So I'll talk about all of that in this episode. So let's get started. So when we all seek inspiration, we can look from everyday organic sources of inspiration, what we see out and about. And then there is this amazing wealth of digital inspiration as well. So we have so many resources now at our fingertips, which is crazy when you think back to before the internet. Like when you think about what we have now, since we've had the internet at our disposal, it's crazy. So there are loads of images on Google and Pinterest and Instagram and all the social media platforms. And so as an artist, when we seek inspiration, we're taking inspiration from the real world, and we know we're okay. There's no copyright there. But as soon as we have searched for something on the internet and we find an image, then we are treading dangerous ground because there is the whole copyright dilemma of whether that image is protected by somebody. And so that's what I want to talk about in this episode, because there is nothing wrong with copying and using other people's images, as long as we're doing it in the right way. Because using other people's artwork, even pictures of other people's artwork, using other people's images of maybe the landscape, it might be an actual artwork that someone's taken a photograph of, a sculpture, for example. All of these images are really, really amazing resources and sources of inspiration. And especially from an artist, if you're trying to understand their technique and replicate that, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And it's how we learn, because nothing is new. So I just want to say that, first of all, that it's okay. It's okay to copy other people. It's okay to use other images. We are always taking inspiration from other people or other places. And what you'll do eventually is you'll take those images and then end up evolving, where you take ideas from lots of different places and make something that's your own. So nothing wrong with doing that whatsoever. And if you're using an image, you found an image on the internet, and you download that image and you copy it, and you're not going to share it anywhere, and you're not planning on selling it, it's literally just for your own personal development, to just take an idea and just explore with it, that is absolutely fine. You don't have to worry about anything if you're just taking an image off the internet and you're just replicating it. If you're not going to share it, if it's just going to stay in your sketchbook, then you've got nothing to worry about. That's absolutely fine. As soon as you want to share it and share that work, even if you don't intend to sell it, even sharing it, if you have replicated somebody else's image, then that becomes an infringement on copyright. You don't even have to just be selling it, it's sharing it. If you're just sharing it on your social media saying, hey, I've just created this artwork, if that image is protected by copyright, if it belongs to someone else, then you've already, by sharing it, breached the rights of copyright. Okay, so this is where you want to be really, really careful with the images that you are recreating and sharing. But the great news is there's lots of things and ways that you can work to make sure that you're not using copyright protected images. So in a nutshell, a photograph that's posted onto the internet is usually the copyright of whoever took that photograph. So whoever, first of all, took that photograph, I'm just trying to think, if it was a photograph of the landscape or a photograph of someone's artwork, whoever took the photograph is usually the person who has the copyrights, the rights to that image, which means that you're not allowed to use that image. So first of all, if you find an image, the first thing to do is to have a look at the source. Where did this image come from? Because if you can find out that information first, if you plan on using this image and sharing it afterwards, then you can decide pretty quickly whether you can use this image or not. Now, there are a few ways that you can do this. When you find an image, if you found it on someone's social media, for example, and it came from a profile, then it's likely that it's the copyright of that person. So you might want to go and reach out to that person and ask whether they would allow you to use that image and replicate it in an artwork. There might be times where you've taken that image and you've just found it on Google, so it's not actually clear where the image has come from. In that situation, Google has a URL where you can reverse an image and search. It's called image.google.com and it's called reverse image. And what you can do is, if you type in that URL, you can upload the image that you have found, and Google will scour the internet and show you all the locations where that image can be found, which is really useful because what that then gives you is insight into where the image came from originally. It might direct you back to the website of where it originated from. If there are lots and lots and lots of images coming up in that search, so that same image is used in like millions of different places, then it's a safe bet that that image is classed as public domain. So public domain means that an image is in the public domain. It's open to everybody. It's an open source image. Now, if that image, for example, is a red poppy in a field with grass in the background, a red poppy, and there's loads and loads of people using this same image. It's pretty indistinct. You know, anyone could have taken that photo of a red poppy in a field. You know, I could probably go to a field and replicate that same image. When that happens, there is no proof then that, you know, the image is all over the place. It doesn't really belong to anyone anymore because it can be easily copied. It's already out there. It's used by so many people. So in a court of law, then it's in the public domain. So if you find an image like that's just replicated and you could replicate it yourself, then it's usually safe to use an image like that. It's in the public domain. Another way an image might be in the public domain is the age of the image. So usually if an image was created before 1923, and I need to double check that whether that's absolutely accurate, but you know, if you've got a really, really, really old image, pre-1923 roughly, then they lose their rights automatically. So those images are then in the public domain. But again, you need to just be cautious of that and don't just use that as a rule of thumb. It's still best to check that image to see whether it has a copyright against it. So if you have found an image and it's distinct, so there's something about it. I'm just trying to think of an example. So let's take the poppy. So say you found a poppy. We could have a poppy that's very indistinct. It's just in a load of grass. I could go and take that. You know, there was no proof that that was from an original source. I could easily take that myself and replicate it. It's out there already, used by millions, the same kind of image. Though, for example, that same image with the poppy had something distinct in that image. So it could be that there was a bee positioned in a certain place, or there was a blue hat in the background, or something like that makes that more distinct. Then what happens then is when you replicate an image, if you copy that image exactly as it is and it's a copyrighted image, that is an infringement on copyright because you are taking somebody else's art and you are copying it exactly as you see it. And that's wrong if it's copyrighted against somebody. So, and if you're planning on sharing it, remember, if you're not planning on sharing it, it's fine. But if you're taking that image, it belongs to somebody else and you're copying it exactly so that when you post that image, someone would look at the original and go, oh my gosh, you've copied this. If you can tell that that artwork came from this place, we can see there's a blue hat, there's a bee, there's a poppy, you've copied that. If you can tell and you've copied it, then that is wrong. If there's a copyrighted image that you've taken and you adapt it so much that then by the end of your artwork, you cannot tell that it actually came from that original artwork. There's no bee, there's no blue hat, you've abstracted the poppy, you've turned the grass blue, then that is actually okay because you haven't copied, you haven't replicated the copywritten image. You've used it as inspiration and you've turned that into something completely different and unique. That is actually okay to do. There is some weird rule that I used to hear. I don't think this is true, that it has to have 5 differences. If you've got 5 differences, then it's okay. But I don't actually believe that. And again, I'm not a legal person, so I don't know for certain. But for me, and from the research that I've done over the years, you could change 5 things in that image. If it still looks like their image, it is still wrong. If you put your work side by side, and even though you've changed 5 things, if you can still tell that you took inspiration from that image and it looks like their image, then it's wrong. Of course, this is a grey area now because this is where it gets confusing. So I just think, if in doubt, just don't use it. You've got to turn that image into something that does not look like it came from that. You can tell that it had a sense that it came from that, but it should not look like their artwork. So if in doubt, just don't use it, or just use it and don't share it. If you do want to create artwork and take inspiration from other people, then go to places where you can get copyright-free images, because there are so many resources out there online right now that you can use. So there's, I'll give a list in the show notes, but there's places like Pixabay, Shutterstock is another one. There's loads and loads of different sites where that if you're using that image, you've got nothing to worry about. And it just gives you that peace of mind then. So I would always start there. If you're planning on doing artwork that you want to share, start with those sites. I have a list in my files where I have all places that I can go and find copyright-free images. And I'll share that list with you. Then I know that if I need an image, I go to those sites and I've got nothing to worry about. And it's just the safest bet. And then the other thing is, if you do see an image that is copyright, then just ask permission. We have loads of people in our community that have seen a photograph, for example, and it's copyright of the photographer. And they've reached out and said, would you mind if I turn this into an artwork? And they've obliged and said, yeah, absolutely. And they're honoured. And they're really kind of touched that they want them to turn it into an artwork. We've had the same in our community where other artists have approached other artists and asked if they can replicate their artwork in a different way, but use the image. It will still look like their artwork. And again, they've said yes. So if that is the route you want to go down, then ask the permission and do that, because then you've got that peace of mind again. So they're the ways that I would make sure that you are using images safely and ethically. There will be notes in the show notes that you can download just as a checklist from this session. And just, go for it. Go and do some research. Remember that you can use that Google reverse image to go and find images and find their source and location. And just use them safely. Okay. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.